Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the Saxophone Mastery Challenge. So excited for today. So excited that you're all joining me today. Yesterday was amazing. Yesterday was awesome. We covered a lot of stuff about how to improve your tone, how the different exercises you can use to really master your ability to master your saxophone tone on saxophone. So, talked about breathing. We talked about embouchure. We talked about what else did we talk about? Tongue, right? BT. That's how I remember this stuff. Right. So really excited about today. Before I get into it, just let me know if you can hear me okay. Let me know if everything sounds good, and then we'll move on. For those just joining today, we already have a few people who were here yesterday, but we are going live every day this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay? Yesterday, we talked all about tone. Today, we're getting into scales, technique, how that's going to help you improve your songs. And then tomorrow, we're going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of how to improvise, how to jazz up your playing on the saxophone. So we're kind of laying the foundation here with the first 3 core principles of my saxophone mastery system: tone, scales, technique. All right, so everyone can hear me okay, it seems, which is great. If you weren't here yesterday, please tell me about yourself. Please tell me where you're tuning in from, how long you've been playing, what goals you have for 2022. And of course, if you were here yesterday, you could share them again. I would love for you to share those goals again. Share them with everyone else that wasn't here yesterday. And to sort of break the ice, I want everyone to sort of get to know each other over this weekend. I want everyone to I want to build a little community over this weekend so that we can all support each other, encourage each other, and keep each other accountable. So we got Marcelino from Suriname, amazing, South America. We got Pat again from Ireland. And we have John, Tammy with us. Awesome. Very cool. So happy you're all here with me. You're really committed. A lot of you were here yesterday. So I appreciate you all being committed to this challenge this weekend. Tammy from San Diego, playing since Christmas. So just started. Tammy just got my saxophone from scratch to success course. Barbara from New Jersey was here with us yesterday. Great. This is amazing. I love that all of you guys are turning up for each of these days. So if you weren't here yesterday and maybe you're tuning in on YouTube, or someone sent you a link to this training, you can actually sign up at saxophonemasterclass.com/training. There's a link in the description of the YouTube video, and you can actually get access to all the replays, and you'll be able to watch them for another week. This until Friday, which is when I'm closing the doors to my Sax Circle coaching community, which is opening for the first time this year on Monday. So I'm super excited about that. We got a few members from the Sax Circle coaching community with us, and Patricia's here with us, which is great. She can't hear anything right now. I know she's been having trouble with her computer, so hopefully she'll be able to hear us. And then Pat invited a friend, Jay-Z App 14. What's your name, Jay-Z App? I know Pat invited you and sent you a link, so I'd love to know what your name is. I can address you by your name. Dale's here, one of my Sax Circle coaching community members, which is amazing. So I'm really excited. So, okay, just call me Jay. All right, I'll call Jay-Z App 14 is Jay. Awesome. Love the name though. Love the YouTube name. So my goal for you, for all of you, by the end of this challenge, by the end of Sunday, I want you to have a deeper understanding about my 5 core principles, right? Which is what you need to work on in order to master the saxophone so you can reach your goals in 2022. I want you to be able to practice smarter, not harder, so you can start playing your favorite songs faster than ever. And I'll be giving action steps so you can start getting the results you want on saxophone in a matter of weeks. So a lot of the things I'm going to be teaching, especially yesterday and today, is going to be action steps that you can take immediately, and you're gonna start seeing an improvement in just a few days. I mean, people started already seeing an improvement within just a few minutes of playing some of these exercises and working on these exercises. Okay? So who is this for? This is for people who already kind of know how to play saxophone on a basic level, but are not sure how to get to the next stage. Okay? So if you're a complete beginner, you're still going to get a lot out of this, but it might get overwhelming at times because, especially today, I'm going to be packing in a lot of information. So if that's how you're feeling, don't worry about it. I'm sure you'll still take something away from it. And if you have any questions, please let me know at the end, because we're doing a Q&A at the end. You want to know exactly what to practice on saxophone to make learning and memorizing new songs easier. Okay, so I know a lot of people they want to play their favorite songs, and that makes sense. So I'm going to be showing you a lot about how you can do that today. You're unhappy with your sound and want to know how to develop a stronger and more consistent tone. All right, and we talked a lot about that yesterday and how you can do that. You want to understand how to start improvising and expressing your personality through the saxophone, and we're going to get into that tomorrow. So this challenge works very simply. Every day I'm going to be doing 30 minutes of teaching. I'm going to give you a homework assignment at the end of each day to begin applying what you learned. And there'll be a Q&A at the end of every session. So you can ask me any questions about what we talked about. And the idea is that everyone's accountable, right? We got tons of comments happening in the comment section. And I want you all to sort of be okay with sharing with each other, be okay with talking with one another, and sharing your goals, sharing your frustrations, so that you can sort of motivate each other, support each other. Okay? So this is where we're going. Yesterday, we did the fundamentals of the perfect sax tone. Again, if you want to watch that replay, if you're on the page where I host this YouTube video, it's below. You can go to day 1 and watch the replay of that. If you're on YouTube, you can just sign up at saxophonemasterclass.com/training to get the replays. Today, we're focusing on how scales and sax technique make learning songs easier. And then tomorrow, we're going to be talking about how to improvise and jazz up your playing like the pros. So that's where we're heading with this. And this is all of my 5 core principles. So important reminders. It's not a magic pill. Okay, so if you don't put in the work, it won't work. Now, I do suggest kind of paying attention and watching, maybe just trying to take in the information. But you should try to apply what you're learning in this masterclass. Okay, and you should try to follow along maybe with the saxophone and play some of the things I'm talking about. But it's okay if you just want to listen first, try to take in the information, try to understand the information. Everyone's at different levels, so some concepts will be easier or harder to understand, and that's okay. I highly suggest turning off your phones or switching them to airplane mode so you can focus. We've got a lot of great stuff to cover. And also close down your browsers and stuff like that. So you're probably wondering, well, how did I learn all this stuff? A lot of you, I told you about this yesterday, but I've been studying music for over 13 years. Okay, so that was formal training. I've been playing the saxophone, playing music for over 25 years, but I studied formally for 13 years. I had private lessons, I did music courses, summer courses. I went to a classical music academy in Ireland, the Royal Irish Academy of Music, for 6 years. I did a jazz program when I was 15. And I finally went to Berklee College of Music in Boston and did a degree there. And the total value of all this education is over $250,000, right? So now I got lucky. I was able to get scholarships to a lot of this stuff, but this is what people spend to get the information I have received over these last 25 years. And then I've also been a professional saxophone player. So I've actually made a career from it. I've toured the world. I've played with Amy Winehouse. I played with Glenn Hansard. I've been on top 10 selling albums. And I've been on movies, commercials, TV shows. So I've made a career from this. And that actually that experience has actually taught me a lot more about what's important in music and what's important about the saxophone. So these are the 5 core principles of my saxophone mastery system, okay? Tone, scales, technique, improvisation, and embellishment. So we talked about tone yesterday, and we're going to start talking about scales and technique today. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to do improvisation and embellishments. And these are the kind of goals that you achieve when you work on my saxophone mastery system. You can get consistency in your tone, develop a personal sax sound, know what to practice to achieve your goals, learn how to memorize and play your favorite songs with ease, develop the confidence to perform for friends and family, learn to jam with other musicians, learn how to improvise on saxophone and express yourself, and jazz up the songs on your favorite recordings like the pros, right? So this is the kind of stuff that I teach, and this is why I developed the saxophone mastery system, because I feel like these are the goals that people want to achieve. So today we're talking about scales and technique. That's the 2 core principles of my 5 core principles, right? 2 of the 5 of the saxophone mastery system. So you can be more prepared for learning new songs on the saxophone, know what notes to play when you're improvising, learn how to tongue the reed in different ways in order to be more expressive when you play, improve your internal rhythm so you can play in time, gain more dexterity in your fingers so you can play with speed and have more control over the saxophone. So we're going to be covering all of this today, and it's going to be a lot of good stuff. All right, so we're going to start with scales. And basically, I have another framework for scales, okay? And it's the triple F scales framework: foundation, formation, and fingerings. Okay? So the foundation of scales is the 12 notes of Western music, right? That is the foundation of all scales. That's the foundation of all music. So in music, there's only 12 notes, okay? And this is the way they're written out. On the left, we have all the 12 notes written out as flats, and then the right, we have them all written out as sharps. So D flat is actually identical to C sharp. E flat is identical to D sharp. G flat is identical to F sharp. This is just different ways of writing out the same notes, but there's always 12 notes, okay? So that's the foundation of scales. So what we do is we take some of these notes and form a scale around these 12 notes, okay? So it's important to understand, first of all, that there's 12 notes in Western music. And this can be difficult to grasp, especially because there's different ways of describing the 12 notes, right? But this is sort of just an overview of what it is. And all of these notes are on the saxophone, obviously. And the way we form scales is by taking some of these 12 notes and creating a scale out of it. So there's multiple scales that you can create from these 12 notes. There's major scales, there's minor scales, there's pentatonic scales, blues scales, and there's even more scales. So there's like probably, over a dozen or more in Western music. And each scale has a specific number of notes. So every major scale, for example, has 7 notes in it, right? And I'm going to get deeper into what this is, okay? And each scale is formed the same way. So all major scales are formed the same way. And they all sound similar, okay? And I'll give you an example of that. Every scale can start on any of the 12 notes in Western music. So if we go back here are the 12 notes in Western music. We can have C major, D flat major, D major, E flat major, E major, F major, etc., right? So I gave an example here: G major, C major, D major. There's 12 major scales, right? As well as 12 minor scales, 12 pentatonic scales, 12 blues scales. So as you can see, it actually amounts to like hundreds of different scales, which can be super overwhelming, which is why people don't want to learn them, don't want to think about them, don't want to work on them. But the reality is they're super important, especially major scales. So as someone who's trying to get into understanding scales, you should start with your major scales on the saxophone. Okay, learn your major scales before any others, right? So if you want to, so now we're going to talk about how a major scale sounds and what major scales are important to learn, especially as a beginner, okay? So here's an example. Here's an example of a G major scale. All right? This is an example of the G major scale. So these are the fingerings of G major. Okay? And it sounds like this. So even if you don't understand or you can't follow everything I'm saying, it's important to understand that that is the sound of a major scale. Da 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 da. And if you can get that into your ear, it's going to make learning scales a lot easier. It's going to make learning new songs a lot easier as well. Because every scale, every major scale sounds like this. So we can take another note, right? This starts on G. But let's take another note like F and play a major scale. It's going to sound very similar. Da 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 da. Okay, that's the same sort of sound as G major. Let's say we go down to E major now. D major. It's got this tonality is what we call it. It's got a major tonality. And there's 12 major scales, so you can start on any of the 12 notes. So I did G, I did F, I did E, I did D, but there's also D sharp, C sharp, okay? If we go back, it's any of these 12 notes we can start a major scale on, okay? So we can start a major scale on A, right? Which is number 10. It sounds similar, it's just starting on a different note. We can do a major scale on B, number 12. Okay, so I hope you're getting that. I hope you're understanding that. And major scales, even though there's minor scales, pentatonic scales, blues scales, major scales are the most important ones to learn. And you should really try to learn all 12, right? And it's going to become more clear as we go further through the teaching today, but I just wanted to make that clear. So we're going to focus on G major today, and I'm going to show you an example of why even just learning one scale can help you with learning new songs, okay? And because if you learn G major, you can actually learn dozens, hundreds, thousands of songs with just the G major scale, right? That you could literally just learn that scale and you could play thousands of songs, right? And I'm going to explain how that works in a second. Okay? I'm going to answer questions at the end, and then after about 20 minutes, so don't worry about that. Right, so, fingerings. How do we play? How do we play each scale on the sax? Right, so how do we figure out the notes? Well, first of all, you need to understand that a scale can be played across multiple ranges of the saxophone. So G major there was played in the middle range. Okay, we went G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. But you can also keep going. You can go with the octave key, A, B, C, D, E, right? You're going higher. So let me start on that G, going all the way up to that E. Okay, so that's still G major. You're just going higher in the instrument. And you can also go lower. This is why you need to work on breath support. Okay, so that's going down G, F sharp, E, D, C, B. Low B, low C. All still part of G major. So the point is, even though we have, say, G, A, B, we have a B here, one finger. There's also a B down here, which is low B. All the fingers down, this key and that key. So that's a low B, that's a middle B. And this is switching between the two. Okay? It's still part of the G major scale. It's just we have the same note in different octaves. Okay, so on a saxophone, a single note can be played in different octaves of the instrument. Low, middle, and high. So we have the middle B there. We have the low B. Okay. And then we have B with the octave key. Same fingering actually, but then we press the octave key. Okay, so there's sometimes different fingerings. There are often different fingerings for the same note depending on what octave you're playing in. And that's the reality, right? The low B is actually a different fingering completely. You have all your fingers down, this guy down here, and this spatula key. It's actually quite hard to get, especially as a beginner. But that is a B. But the middle B is just that one finger by itself. And then the B above that is that one finger by itself, but you press the octave key. Okay? So this is important to know. And it's important to memorize the fingering of each note so you can play these scales with these across the whole range of the instrument, right? So I hope everyone's following. I know this can be quite complicated, quite overwhelming, but I'm hoping you get a better understanding, because what I'm going to show you now is how to actually learn the scale step by step with ease. Okay, so giving you an overview, now I'm going to show you how to actually learn the scale, right? So first of all, you got to memorize the note names, then you got to finger through the notes, and then you got to play the scale. So let me show you what I mean. We have G major again. Okay, so these are the fingerings, but the first thing you want to do is actually just memorize the notes at the top here. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. Okay, and you want to just memorize those notes. Okay, so it's really as simple as looking at the page and going, like looking at the page, memorizing notes. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, right? G is repeated. Okay, so that's going from low G up to high G with the octave key. And it's as simple as looking at the page, saying the notes out loud, then looking away from the page and trying to say the notes again. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Okay, if you get it wrong, try it again. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Look at the page. Look away. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. This is the first step, because if you don't know the note names, if you don't know the letter names, it's going to be hard to try to play it. So what most people do is they'll look at this chart here, and I do have fingering charts for all the major scales, and that's actually going to be a bonus tomorrow that I'm going to give you at the end of the masterclass tomorrow. So if you come tomorrow, I will give you all the fingerings for all the major scales absolutely free. So that's something I wanted to tell you guys. So we want to get the letter names down first, okay? Because that's the first step. It's gonna make it a lot easier if you can memorize it. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Then you're in a great place. Because the next step then is to finger through the notes, right? So what do I mean by that? I mean literally don't play the sax, just find the fingerings, right? look at the chart, find the fingerings. And by the way, this chart is in the download today, which is below this live stream. It says download today's PDF. And again, if you're watching publicly, you're not signed up to my email list, just go to saxophonesmasterclass.com/training and you can get this PDF for free as well. Okay? So we're going to go through the fingers. G, right? Then we go up to A, 2 fingers in the front. Then we go up to B. C, middle finger. D with the octave key, all the fingerings down. Right? Then E, F sharp, G. And so the goal here is to actually just say out loud the letter names. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Okay, start slow, but without looking at the page, because you've memorized the letter names, right? So without looking at the page, just finger through the notes. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And actually close your eyes, because it helps to close your eyes and visualize where your fingers are. Feel where your fingers are, okay? Now you can look in the mirror as you do this if you're just starting, or if you're trying to figure out the notes for more difficult scales. But this is how the process of learning a major scale. And again, I'm going to show you why it's so important after this. Okay, so again, fingering through the notes, say them out loud. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And then go backwards. G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. Okay? Work on that in 1 octave. Right? And once you have that, or if that's too easy for you because you're a little more advanced, do the same thing going down to the low notes. So we're now going down. G, F sharp, E, D, C, B. C, D, E, F sharp, G. So just saying out loud each of the fingerings of the G major scale. Now we're going to go up the octave. G with the octave key. G, A, B, C, D. This is palm key. D, E, right? And then D, C, B, A, G. So saying them out loud, not playing them, just developing the muscle memory of how to play the G major scale across the whole range of the instrument. If you're a beginner, just that middle range that I have here on the page is the second step to memorizing and learning your scales. And it's going to make it so much easier to then play the scale, which is the next step, right? Play the scale. Okay, so now that we have memorized the note names, memorized the fingerings, we can now play the scale. Okay? And we're just going to do 1 octave for now. Okay, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. And what we're going to do is focus on everything we talked about yesterday. Breathing exercises, embouchure exercises, tongue exercises, tongue placement. Focus on all this, back straight, everything. Take a deep breath, work on that a little bit before you start playing, and start playing the notes super slow. And now you know your G major scale, right? That is a way to never forget G major, by going through that process. Memorize the note names, work on just fingering through the notes, and then play the scale slowly. And what I was doing here is I was tonguing every note, which is important. And then I took a breath after C. So I went G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, right? It's important to make sure you have enough breath to play the note consistently, play all the notes consistently. If that's too difficult, just work on doing long tones on every note. That's G. Now we work on A. B. C, D, E, F sharp, and finally G. So that's another good way to warm up to playing the scale, which you should always do anyway, right? You should, when you're doing those exercises with the mouthpiece and neck and your breathing exercises, the next step is actually just play a scale and play them as long tones, right? And that's going to help with also your muscle memory and learning the scale. And then finally, you can try to play the scale slowly and in time like this. Now, if you're more advanced and you want to try to work on your low notes, your high notes, you can expand the scale and go all the way up to that D, right, or E, and then back down like this. Okay, that's not easy to do, but it's really important, and it's going to help you so much with learning new songs. Okay, you can also go lower. All right, so you're starting on that G, going down to the lowest note and back up again. This is how you really internalize a scale until eventually you play the whole thing, the whole range of the instrument like this. So when I'm playing my scales, that's how I practice them. I go all the way up, all the way down, and then land on where I started. Okay? That is the goal. That is the goal. So I hope that's easy to, not easy, but I hope you're able to grasp all of these concepts. Okay? I'm going to take a minute here just to look at the comments. So Ed Bowden, do you have a PDF for all 12 scales along with sharps and flats? Yes, I do. I have that. I usually sell it as a product, as an ebook, but I'm actually going to give it to you for free. Once you come tomorrow, I'm going to give it out. I'm going to give you a link at the end of the masterclass so you can actually download all of these scales for free. Okay? But you have to come live and you have to stay to the end. That's the only caveat. Otherwise, you can buy it from me. It's called the Ultimate Major Scales Fingering Guide. Got all the major scales, all the fingerings, all the note names. I explain Western music, all that stuff. Okay? Is there only ever 8 notes in a scale? Great question, Jay. Great question. So, I know it's confusing because it says G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. That looks like 8 notes, but it's actually not because G is repeated. So this is 7 notes. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp is actually how many notes there is in the major scale. And then you just repeat G. So it's not an additional note. Okay? So in a major scale, there's 7 notes. Now, in minor scales, in a minor scale, there's also 7 notes. Natural minor, harmonic minor, melodic minor. These are all different scales. They all have 7 notes. A blues scale has 6 notes. And a pentatonic scale has 5 notes. Penta, 5, right? Now, I go through all of these scales inside the Sax Circle coaching community. You get access to how all of these are formed and everything. I don't want you to skip ahead to all of those scales. I just want you to work on major scales for now. But yes, there are actually different amounts of notes for each scale. Okay? And so that's important to know. So there's actually a chromatic scale, which is all 12 notes. So there's 12 notes in a chromatic scale. There's diminished scales that have 8 notes. So it depends on the scale. But every major scale has 7 notes. Okay? Okay, Chip Brown, welcome Chip. I don't believe you were here yesterday, but you have a great question. When I learned the G scale on the alto, the notes are actually in the key of B flat. So why is it better to learn a name? That is wrong if you want to play in the key with pianos and guitars. Excellent question. So I didn't want to get too into this, but the saxophone is a transposing instrument. Okay? So when you play G on the alto, it's actually a B flat in concert, which is piano, guitar, voice. Basically, the sound of most instruments is going to be a B flat. Okay, so when you play it to a tuner, it's going to be B flat. So, and tenor's different as well. Now, this is also in the free PDF I'm giving you tomorrow. It's got a whole transposition cheat sheet in there to help you transpose. So make sure to come tomorrow, stay to the end to get that. And Chip's asking, well, why would I learn G fingering if it actually sounds like a B flat? Well, so the point is, because different saxophones have different transposing, or transpose in different ways. Like alto transposes different than tenor. Tenor's a different transposing instrument. So if you play a G on a tenor, it actually sounds like an F. But every single saxophone has the same fingering. So G on the sax, 3 fingers down, on alto sax is the same as G tenor. The fingering is the same. So if I play a G on a tenor, it's going to be 3 fingers down. If I play a G on the soprano, it's going to be 3 fingers down. If I play a G on the baritone, it's 3 fingers down. So if you're trying to switch between saxophones and you've learned, I mean, you can already see that it's quite difficult to internalize the scale and internalize the fingerings on the sax. It takes a few steps to get there. Imagine you had to now change all of that muscle memory, change all of that thought process for every saxophone, right? It's to make it, exactly, Chip got there before I even said it. It's to make it easier to play more than one kind of sax, 100%. That's 100% the reason. Now, when I go G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, that's G major. I can go to tenor. It's the same notes. It's the same notes. It's the same fingerings, I should say. It sounds different on tenor because it's a different transposing instrument, but it's the same notes. Fingerings. Same fingerings. Chip was here yesterday, and I hope that was clear. I hope that was clear. Okay? Any more questions? JS Rye says, great lesson. Thanks. From New Zealand. Awesome. That's cool. Thank you so much for coming. I love that people are coming from all over the world here. All right, so this is step 1. This is step 1, okay? To really understand scales. But now we're going to get into technique, because we've really just learned the basics of how to play a G major scale. But actually, before we get into technique, I'm going to show you why it's important to learn scales to help you with learning songs. Barbara, I'm going to get to that at the end of the lesson. Your question. So we'll do that at the Q&A at the end. So this is one of the reasons why it's important to learn your major scales. Okay? When you learn G major, now even if you don't read sheet music, it's important, right? Because when you learn G major, you can actually play hundreds of songs, like I said. This is one example, okay? Mary Had a Little Lamb. This is in the key of G major, and the way you know that is because of the key signature, which is in the top left-hand corner. Key signature indicates what scale is being used, and that little F sharp symbol indicates that it's G major. It also the last note of the music indicates it's G major as well, which is a G, right? That's the root of the scale. That's the starting note of the scale. And when you actually look, I've written out the letter names, and we actually look at all the letter names. They're all notes that are inside the G major scale. B, A, G, A, B, 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 A, B, D, D. These are all notes that are part of G major, okay? It never goes outside of the key of G major. See what I'm saying? This is G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Go back to the sheet music. All of these notes are inside G major. See? So I hope that makes sense. So because you have all of those notes in your fingers, all of those G major notes, we can now go and play Mary Had a Little Lamb so much easier. All of those notes were part of G major. A, B, A, G, A, B, 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 A, B, D, D, right? We've learned all those notes, and now we can play that song so much easier because it's already under our fingers, and we can read the letter names and know how to play the notes. Okay, so even if you didn't have the sheet music and you're trying to learn it by ear, if you knew that it uses the key of G major, it would make it so much easier to learn, because you're like, well, I only have to use the notes of G major to play this song, right? In most cases. So let me give you another example. When the Saints Go Marching In, okay? Okay, we have the F sharp in the top left-hand corner of the music. If you look at all the letter names, they all are notes of G major. It ends, the very last note ends on G. So now that we know G major, it's so much easier to learn. G, B, C, D. They're the first four notes. G, B, C, D. Then it goes G, B, C, D, B, G, B, A. That's the second phrase, phrase 2. All of these notes are G major. So just by knowing G major, you can now learn at least these 2 songs. And guess what? There's dozens, hundreds more, all using these notes. Okay, so I really hope that clarifies the importance of learning your scales, especially your major scales. Sometimes the notes go outside of the major scale or whatever key you're in, but they're exceptions to the rule, and it happens more often than not that you just use the notes of a particular scale, especially in pop music, especially on songs you hear on the radio. You're probably never going to go outside of a scale of the key of the scale, or you're probably never going to go outside of the key, right? And it's either going to be in one of the 12 keys, G major, C major, F sharp major, whatever, one of those 12 notes. But we're focusing on G major today. And so this is why scales are important, right? But there's another step to all this, okay? So here's Jingle Bells as well, so same thing. G major, all the notes of G major, and you can play Jingle Bells. Let me try it for you. Okay, all G major, except we're going down lower, which is why it's important to try to work on G major going low, because this one goes. You're You're actually going down to that low D. And then you're playing D, B, A, G, E, right? You're going to that low E. So which is why it's important to learn G major across the wider range of the instrument. But it's always going to be the notes of G major, okay? So the next part of this whole thing is learning your technique, right? And I have another system for this called the RAD technique system. And we get to focus on rhythm, articulations, and dexterity. Okay, this is the three things that we need to work on. And this is going to help us improve our, it's going to help us improve our ability to play scales. Okay, so let's start with rhythm. Rhythm's all about learning how to play songs in time and with good rhythm. Be able to play with other musicians and backing tracks in time. You can work on your rhythm by working with a metronome starting at 60 BPM, and you can work on practicing different rhythms. Okay, so an example of this is to simply get a metronome. Okay, get a metronome. You can get one on your smartphone and set it to 60 BPM. Okay? And the best place to start with improving your rhythm is to actually just set your metronome to 60 BPM and try to clap along. Okay, this is what's called working on your internal clock. And if you can get this, it's going to help you with improving your rhythm when it comes to playing scales, when it comes to playing songs. Because it's all about your internal rhythm. And this is the simplest way to do it, right? Practice with a metronome. Don't tap your feet, just clap along in time, okay? And if you work on this 5 minutes a day, it's going to really help with improving your time and your rhythm, okay? So that's really step one. And then once you've done that, once you've kind of gotten used to that, then you can grab the sax, put the metronome back on, and play the G major scale in time. And that's a really good place to start. Okay, I'm tonguing every note there, and I'm playing in time to the metronome. So that's the best place to start when it comes to working on your rhythm, right? Then we get into articulations, which is being able to tongue the reed in different ways. Regular tonguing, which is what I did there, legato tonguing, staccato tonguing. And you can work on practicing different rhythms with these articulations. And again, using a metronome. So let's just take the same thing, 60 BPM, but this time we're going to do staccato tonguing. Okay, now staccato tonguing is a kind of advanced technique, but it sounds like this. Okay, so not only do you practice tonguing, you practice staccato tonguing to help improve staccato tonguing. Staccato tonguing is basically tonguing the reed and then stopping the reed with your tongue. So it's like da, da, da. Okay? Right? You're tonguing and then you're putting your tongue back on the reed quickly. It's an advanced technique. If you just started, I wouldn't worry about this one. But that's just one way to start working on your articulations, which helps you to be more expressive when you're playing, right? There's also legato tonguing, which is sort of similar to tonguing, but you're using the very tip of your tongue. And you're doing very lightly like this. also known as sort of feather tonguing. So that's another way to practice your articulations. But then there's also just legato, which is no tonguing at all. So same thing, put the metronome at 60 BPM, don't tongue any of the notes. And this helps you with playing smooth, right? It helps you with connecting notes, right? You don't tongue, but you also don't stop in between each note like this. You connect every note, okay? It's called legato playing. Okay? So these are different ways to articulate the same notes, the same scale. If you can't practice in time to a metronome, that's okay, but you can just work on the technique by itself. But eventually you want to be able to play all these articulations to a metronome, right? And so this helps with playing songs. This helps with, you know, when you're playing a song, sometimes you tongue it, sometimes you play legato, sometimes you need staccato. There's different ways to approach playing different notes of a song, and this is how you work on that. And then finally, okay, this is articulations, tonguing in different ways, regular tonguing, legato tonguing, staccato tonguing, practice different rhythms using these articulations, using a metronome when practicing articulations, right? Then we have dexterity, okay? Being able to transition between any two notes with ease. Develop muscle memory in your fingers and being able to play new songs with ease as well. Express yourself with more clarity when you improvise, okay? Okay, so what kind of techniques can you do to help you with your dexterity? Well, there's actually a huge amount of techniques that you can work on, okay? There's working on the full range of the instrument, which is what I showed you already. But there's also different exercises like playing in thirds, right? Sounds like this. Okay, so that's G major, but it's playing in thirds. All right? G, and I'll show it to you here. This is a scale exercise you can work on. G, B, A, C, B, D, C, E, D, F sharp, E, G. Right? B, G, B, A, C, B, D, C, E, D, F sharp, E, G. And then we go down. G, E, F sharp, D, E, C, D, B, C, A, B, G. So we're using the G major scale, but we're playing it in a different permutation. Okay? So why would you do this? Well, it's going to help you with improving your technique. Okay? Transitioning between notes. So if you go G to B, that can be a hard transition. So you're working on that. Then A to C. A really hard transition is B to D, where you put all your fingers down. B to D. Right? So you're going from one finger all the way with all your fingers down and the octave key. Then C to E as well. C to E with all your fingers down and the octave key. These are technically difficult transitions, but if you practice it like this, then it's going to help you with learning songs. Let's go back to When the Saints Go Marching In. G, B, C, D. So that first two notes alone, G, B, that is the first two notes of the major scale in thirds. G major in scale in thirds. Right? G to B, those first two notes. So if you've been practicing that to a metronome in time and you get to When the Saints Go Marching In, going from G to B is going to be easier, right? And then C to D, you've been working on that, or B to C and C to D, you've been working on that just by playing G major, right? When you work on G major and play all those notes, it's going to make it easier to transition. But let's go to phrase 2 now. Second bar of phrase 2, right? G, B, C, D, B, G, right? G, D to B, that's thirds going down. When you go down, that's D to B. And then B to G. That's the last 2 notes of G major in thirds descending. See the last 2 notes here? So you can see that just practicing this scale in thirds is going to help you with playing songs in the same key, because you're working on different transitions, right? And this is why chord principle number 3 is so important, working on your technique, right? And if you're practicing all of these techniques and exercises while tonguing the notes as well, then you are going to be able to play this song so much easier by just working on your scales and working on your technique. So I hope you're following with that. So as you can see, like those first 3 core principles of tone, scales, and technique really are the foundation for learning songs, right? You need your tone, you need your breath support, you need your embouchure exercises, your mouthpiece and neck exercises, just to get the sound out, right, and get consistency. You need scales to help you with learning new songs, so you can know what the notes are of the song and have them under your fingers. And then you need your technique to help you improve how to execute those notes, right, and how to transition between those notes. And if you work on all those 3 things before you even play before you even learn a song, before you even play the song, it's going to make it so much easier to learn the song, right? So I hope that makes sense. So today's assignment is learn a new major scale using my 3-step process, okay? Figure out the notes, the letter names, go finger through it, and then try to play it. Okay, so if you don't know G major, work on G major. If you want to work on D major, work on D major, E major, whichever. Practice the scale in 1 octave or more. So if you want to go up higher, go down lower, do that if you're more advanced, and practice it at 60 BPM. And if you are more advanced, practice the scale in thirds like I just showed you. Okay? Where you skip 1 note and you play it in thirds. Skip 1 note every time. And that's what I want you to work on. That's what I want you to work on. So tomorrow's training is about getting into improvising, jazzing up your sax playing. It's important to have the foundation of scales, technique, tone, in order to actually start moving into improvising and jazzing up your playing. But I'm going to give you a little overview of what that is, how to approach it, what you can work on immediately to start doing that. And that's tomorrow, same time, Sunday, 12 p.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time, or 8 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. So I'm super excited about that. And if you come tomorrow and stay to the end, I will have a great little bonus for you where I have all the major scales, all the fingerings. Okay, the Ultimate Major Scales Fingering Guide is called. It explains Western music. It explains the 12 notes in more detail. I've got a transposition cheat sheet in there. I've got all sorts of stuff that's going to really help you with moving forward with your goals on the saxophone in 2022. Okay? So now, again, oh yeah, if you want to catch the replay, make sure you're signed up if you aren't already, saxophonemasterclass.com/training, and that's how you can get the PDF bonus as well. So do we have any questions? I'm going to go to the comment section here. We had a lot of stuff, okay, today. Lots of information today. So I want to make sure that it's all been clear. All right? So I'm going to focus on questions about scales and technique, and then any other questions you have, I'll address those as well. So Charles Hodges asks, how important is it to learn chord changes? So, as a sax player, we don't play chords, right? We don't play chords on the saxophone. We play single notes. A chord is 2 or more notes played simultaneously, and sax players don't do that. We play single notes. But when you're improvising, or when you want to jam along to other musicians who are playing chords, well, you need to know what notes they're playing in those chords so you can play over them, right? As a beginner, trying to learn melodies, trying to learn songs, trying to work on your technique, trying to work on your scales, it's not that important to know your chords. It's a more advanced technique when it comes to improvising. You might need to know more about chords, but as a beginner, it's not that important. Marcelino asks, when you learn to memorize the scales, is it then easy to play by heart? 100%. 100%. Okay? So when you learn your scales, and even just G major, and you have a song that's in the key of G major, because of the muscle memory you've developed, because you're able to play all the fingerings of G major, it's now in your head. Okay, I know that I need to play the notes of G major to know this song. And once that's in your head, it's going to make memorizing it a lot easier. Okay, it's going to make memorizing the song so much easier because you already have the muscle memory of the notes. It's just in different permutations. So whenever someone says, hey, can you play me When the Saints Go Marching In? Hey, can you play me Jingle Bells? I've learned it in G major, so I'll go, okay, that's in G major. So I like finger through the G major scale, right? Make sure I have that under my fingers. I'll actually play the entire G major scale before I play the song. I'll go. Right? And then I'll go, okay, Jingle Bells. It's all in G major, so it's easier for me to play it. And I can learn, I can hear it as well. I can hear, oh yeah, it goes to this. Like when you hear the melody and know the melody in your ear and you know the scale, then learning it by memory is so much easier. Okay? Hope that answers your question. Let's see what else we got here. Paul asks, is the star on sheet music always refer to the octave key, or is that how you write it to explain clearly? Yeah, so I kind of came up with this technique of putting in the star, which does mean play the octave key, which is this key at the back here, right? So that's my way of making it easier for you to learn the song, right? Just look at your last part of the question. Yeah, so it's basically, that's the way I write it out to explain it clearly so you can really understand, oh yeah, I press the octave key here. Okay, because a lot of people can't read sheet music, and I want to make sure that, you know, you don't have to learn every single note in sheet music and the way it's written in order to play songs. So I write in the letter names for all the songs that I teach, and that helps with figuring out the fingerings. And then you have the fingering chart that has it written out the same way. Okay, so I didn't see your question yesterday. Can you show exactly how to use palm keys? I'm struggling with this. All right, I will show you that at the end. I'm going to kind of address the scale questions, technique questions first. You said there's only 7 notes in G major. This is John, one of my students in the Saxophone from Scratch to Success course. You said there's only 7 notes in G major because we play G twice, but one G is without the octave key and one G is with the octave key. Are they not different notes making 8? So that's a great question. Okay, this is one of the most confusing things about scales. And the answer is, when you're talking about the letter names, when you're talking about the letter names of a scale, right? There's only 7. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. So even though G is repeated, and it is technically a different fingering, it's the same letter name. It's part of the scale, just repeated, right? It's the root note of the scale. Okay, so it's just because when you see the same note twice, it doesn't mean that's an additional note inside the scale. It just means that's been repeated in a different octave. Okay, so there's always 7 notes in a major scale, and when you learn one octave, you just repeat the octave, right? You just repeat the G note in the higher octave, right? So some scales have 3 of the same note. For example, C, right? If you start on low C, there's actually 3 C's there. You have the low C, different fingering. You have the middle C, different fingering. And then you have the octave C with the octave key. Same note here, same fingering here, but the back C. Doesn't mean there's now 2 additional notes in the scale. It's still just 7 notes, but you repeat the C note. Right? So I hope that's clear. I hope that makes sense. It can be confusing. I totally get it. I totally get it. Can you show us a full G major scale? That's if you're already signed up, I have the G major for download, the fingerings I've been showing you throughout this masterclass as well, right? But basically, in one octave, you have G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, right? And it's going down as well. But if you want to play across the whole range of the instrument, it goes all the way up into the palm keys, okay? I have a lesson on all the palm key fingerings, but let me show you, right? So you go B, C with the octave key, and then the palm key here is going to be this key here, right? The one in the middle. Then you have, you hold down this one, 2 for E with this side key, and that's E. And those are the palm keys for D and E, okay? But I do have a lesson on all the different palm keys, and I'm going to be giving you a fingering chart again tomorrow with all the different palm keys as well, on all the low notes. So make sure to come tomorrow, stick to the end, and I'll give you that bonus, and that's with all the major scales as well. Dale is here, one of my Sax Circle coaching community members. I'm a student. Where is the G major in thirds in your lesson outline? Yeah, so inside the Sax Circle coaching community, I have an entire course called Mastering Your Saxophone Technique. And not only do I have the major scale in thirds in there, I have major scales in all different permutations. Okay, so you can find that in there, Dale. It's called Mastering Your Saxophone Technique. There's about 40 videos in there. I do major scale in thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, octaves. I talk about arpeggios. I talk about all sorts of different ways you can practice your scales to really help you master the saxophone. Marcel asks, articulation is something we should be learning in the beginning of learning to play the sax? Good question. Great question. Only focus on tonguing, just regular tonguing, right? And just try to practice playing every note with the tonguing technique. Don't worry about staccato tonguing. Don't worry about legato tonguing. Don't worry about legato. Just focus on tonguing each note, okay? Paul says, thanks again for taking the time, Alexander. These are really informative. You're welcome, Paul. A couple of questions about reeds. So Timothy says, it sounds like whatever the scale the song is written in is the only notes that you'll be using. Yes, for the most part, whatever notes uh, are in the scale of the song, right? So with Jingle Bells, When It Says Go Marching In, they're all in the key of G major. You're only using the notes of G major to play those songs, right? And that's going to be true for most songs that you play. Some songs will go outside of the key of G major, outside of the scale, and you'll end up playing different. Different notes. So you might have something outside of G major, like C sharp or D sharp. Something will go outside, but it's that's what we call an accidental, and it's quite rare. Okay. So what is the symbol for the palm key? I put 2 asterisks for the palm key. Okay, and I'm going to give you a fingering chart, Barbara, tomorrow, and you'll see that there's 2 asterisks. All right, so any other questions about scales? Any other questions about technique? Let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to answer a few other questions about reeds, which a lot of people have questions about. What is the meaning of different size reeds? Tammy asks. Patricia asks, can you give us some advice as to which level of reed we should use? Not sure if you mentioned this yesterday. Barbara had a question about cork. I'll address that as well. Any other? I saw another question about reeds. Trying to find it. So, with the different size reeds, if you're a beginner, you should be focusing on either a 2 or a 1.5 reed. Okay? The stronger the reed gets, the harder it gets to vibrate the reed against the mouthpiece. All right, so as a beginner, you want to be focusing on 2 or 1.5. I have another video that explains everything about what reeds you should get. I recommend the traditional Van Doren reed as a beginner. Get a 2 reed. And it also is important what mouthpiece you're using. So you got to look at your mouthpiece, see what one you have, because if it's an opening that's too wide, then you want a softer reed. And if it's an opening that's very small, you want a harder reed. Okay? And so you want to make sure you have the best pairing. You want to make sure you have the best pairing. So I would focus on getting a 1.5, a 2 reed, and make sure you have a good mouthpiece to go with it. I recommend the Yamaha 4C. That's a really great mouthpiece for beginners. And I see another question about how often an average will go through reeds. This is a great question as well. So it really 100%, it's a piece of wood. So it depends on the wood. It depends on the reed. It depends on how it was made. Sometimes you get a reed and it doesn't even work that well. This is very common. It's very frustrating. You'll get a reed. It's like, oh, I can't get a good sound. I can't get consistent sound. It's a bad reed because it's made of wood and there's a lot of consistency with wood. I've had reeds that last for weeks and weeks and weeks if you take care of them, right? So the only real time that you should definitely not be using a reed is if you chip it or if it breaks. Okay, so you should be just changing out your reed. But you can actually make a reed last quite long if you take care of it, put it into a reed case after every session, take it off the mouthpiece. And also, yeah, it depends how much you're playing every day. If you're playing 5 hours a day, you're going to get through the reed quicker. If you're playing 30 minutes a day or less, you're not going to get through it so quick, right? So it's important to take care of your reeds if you want them to last longer. But it's a hard question to say, oh, yeah, reeds will last 2 weeks, because it completely depends on how long you play it for, what kind of reed you have, how good it is, and how much you take care of it, and has chipped or anything like that. Okay, so that's super important to think about. If you want more of my recommendations, go to saxophonemasterclass.com/guide, and I have an ultimate saxophone buyer's guide that shows you all the different products that I recommend: mouthpieces, reeds, ligatures, all that stuff. So I can put this link in the description, but it's just saxophonemasterclass.com/guide, GUIEDE. All right, I put it in the description. Barbara had a question about her cork coming off. I assume you mean the cork on the neck here. I had a problem with my cork. It was actually worn down so much. I actually had to get it replaced in order for the mouthpiece to stay on. If the cork is chipped just at the bottom here, that's okay. But if it's chipped quite a lot in the middle or at the top, you might need to get it replaced. You could also just wrap a little bit of paper around and that could help. But if you're still able to get a tone, if you're still able to get a sound, then you probably don't have much of a problem with it. Chip asks, what kind of saxophone do you play? I play a Yanagisawa. Okay, I have a Yanagisawa alto, tenor, soprano, and I love the brand, and yeah, they're my favorites. They're my favorites. Yanagisawa. We have another question. Can it be useful to practice with pentatonic scales, for example, the A minor scale? And I assume you mean the A minor pentatonic scale. That's from Santiago. Absolutely. Pentatonic scales are great scales to practice. They would be the next ones that I would recommend. After you start learning major scales, start learning your pentatonic scales, because a lot of songs actually just use the pentatonic scale. It's kind of amazing. A lot of songs on the radio just use pentatonic scales to make up the whole melody, and there's only 5 notes. So if you learn pentatonic scale, you might actually end up being able to play a lot of different songs very easy. Like Amazing Grace, for example, uses the A minor pentatonic scale, and so if you just know A minor pentatonic, you can play Amazing Grace. So A minor pentatonic is and you can actually play Amazing Grace using that scale. All those notes are A minor pentatonic, right? So that will be the next scale to start learning after you start learning major scales. More questions. So Dale says, I've had reeds that were too hard to get a good sound and they lasted a day, and had 1 or 2 that were months old and once moist were great. So that's a good point, right? It really depends. It's very frustrating. I do recommend a synthetic reed, which isn't made of wood, that is consistent every time. It's called Leger Signature Saxophone Reeds. Again, if you go to saxophonemasterclass.com/guide, you can see that where you can get that on Amazon, and I have a video about it too on my YouTube channel. So if you just look up synthetic reed on my YouTube channel, I do a whole review on those reeds. Who's your favorite sax player? Oh my goodness. Such a difficult question. Yeah, there's so many. I have all sorts of sax players around my studio here. John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Cannonball Adderley. I love all these players. Sonny Rollins, a lot of jazz guys. I'm a big jazz bebop guy. I'm a big jazz bebop, hard bop fan. So yeah, I mean, I would say Sonny Rollins is probably one of my favorites. Probably my favorite. Love Sonny Rollins. So check him out. He's amazing. Barbara asks, is it a piece that you buy or does someone have to do it? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Barbara. Maybe you can... oh, you're talking about Amazing Grace. I actually have Amazing Grace on my YouTube channel, which you can check out. I have a step-by-step lesson on that. So check that out. How long do you have to play? How good do you have to get? How good do you have to get before you can justify spending a lot of money on a great sax and not be a spoiled brat? From Chip Brown. That is a great question. Very good question, right? So this saxophone, if you buy it new today, the newest version probably costs upwards of $3,500. The tenor sax, $4,000. Baritone, $6,000. Crazy money, right? Now I'm a professional. I make a career from playing the saxophone, so I justify spending money on saxophones. But I got this over 10 years ago. I haven't bought a saxophone in about 10 years. I just stick to the one I know. So once you get a professional, like a great professional sax, you can sort of stick to it, and it'll last for years, right? If you're a beginner, I would recommend not getting the cheapest sax, which is those $150, $200 saxes on Amazon, and I would definitely not recommend buying a $3,000 sax, right? Get something in the middle, $500 to $1,000. Okay, Jean Paul is a great sax. Someone mentioned that. Great sax for beginners. Okay, don't go ahead if you're only been playing a year, 2 years, even or a few weeks. Do not spend ridiculous amounts of money. The better thing to spend money on is learning how to play, getting a teacher, getting education on how to play it properly. Because you can actually buy a $400, $500 sax, like the Jean Paul. Again, that's in my Ultimate Saxophone Beginners Guide. You can buy that, or you can get that for free, and then you can buy that saxophone, and you can learn so much if you spend that money on a teacher who's going to show you how to play, show you all the right techniques. That's far more important than, oh, I have a great sax. Just because you have a great sax, just because you have a $300, $400 mouthpiece, doesn't mean you're going to sound good. Doesn't mean you're going to know how to play it. It's just there's a completely wrong mindset that happens for beginners and gear junkies. They're like, if I just get the best stuff, I'll sound good. And it's just not true. You can get a $500 sax, a $50 mouthpiece, a synthetic reed for $20, $30, and you can just focus on learning how to play properly, getting the right lessons, getting the right education, getting the right guidance, and spend the rest of the money that you would have spent on all expensive stuff, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Spend that money on actually getting a good teacher, right? Get some private lessons. If you have a great teacher in your area, join the Sax Circle coaching community. Get lessons from me. Get the guidance from me. I lay out everything step by step to help you. I answer all your questions. So that's more important to do than getting the best gear. If you're getting all of that guidance and all of those lessons, and you still want a good sax, well, go ahead and spoil yourself. Why not? Tommy said I started with a 3. Yeah. That's why you need that's why I was asking about. Tommy's one of my Saxophone from Scratch to Success students, and she sent me a video. Sounded great, and I'm not sure if I did, but I noticed that there was a little bit of difficulty in getting consistent sound. It sounded like the reed was hard, and there's a few different reasons for that. Why you're not getting that consistency. It could be just doing those mouthpiece and neck exercises, working on your breathing, but it could also be the reed, right? If you have a 3 and you're just starting, that might be too hard. Go back down to a 2, 2.5, preferably 2, really. But it also depends on the mouthpiece. So you need to let me know what mouthpiece you're using as well. Barbara says, I've been working on Amazing Grace for a month and it's hard. Have you watched my video on it? Because I take you through it step by step in a key that's easier to play as a beginner. So try using that video to guide you. Yeah, so Dale says, wish I could use a 3. I just found out it's so rigid. I'm on a 2 and 2.5. I vary them, and that's a good place to start. Dale's been playing for, I don't know, almost a year now. Now that I'm learning the sax, I hear it in a lot more music. Yeah, sax it's making a comeback these days. I love jazz as well. This is my goal. Awesome, awesome. The 3 came my sax. Yeah, that's the thing. When you get a new saxophone, whatever's in the saxophone case isn't always the best tools for you as a beginner. I know, it's annoying. It's like, well, I just spent $500, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on a saxophone, it doesn't even come with the right stuff, right? This is why it's so important to have a teacher. This is why it's so important to have someone to guide you. You can't just throw money at an instrument, a mouthpiece, a reed, and hope that that's going to work and make you sound good. You have to know, oh, I need, is this the right mouthpiece? Is this the right reed? Is this the right ligature? Again, I have the ultimate saxophone buyer's guide at saxophonemasterclass.com/guide, and I give you all the recommendations there, and that's free. How do you replace the cork? Can I do it myself? Is there a replacement part on your list? I would not recommend replacing the cork yourself unless you know exactly what you're doing. This should be done by a professional. The saxophone is a super delicate instrument, super delicate, and that is one of the burdens of being a sax player, is that it actually always needs to be repaired at least once every. There's always something that's going to happen with it, right? Not always the cork, but there could be leaks, there could be problems with the instrument, and you need to have someone that you can go to, that you can trust, that can fix it, right? I had to get all my saxes fixed recently, alto, tenor, baritone, and soprano, because there were leaks, there were problems. I'm not going to be able to fix it. That's a whole nother skill. You have to be like an engineer to understand how to fix this instrument, including putting cork in place and stuff like that. So I wouldn't recommend replacing it. I don't have any recommendations for a replacement kit or anything like that, because I've never done it myself. Michael's here, one of my Sax Circle coaching community members. What's the best reed to use? As a beginner, I purchased a coated synthetic reed and it's pretty hard to play with. So when you get a synthetic reed, Michael, you have to make sure you're picking the right size. And again, I talk about this inside the community, and I also have a video on YouTube about the best synthetic reed to get as a beginner, because synthetic reeds are designed differently. So a 2 synthetic reed is actually harder than a 2 cane reed. Again, super frustrating, super annoying. Why isn't all the strengths the same across every brand? They're not. A 2.5 Van Doren could be a 2 Rico. These are 2 different brands, and a 2.5 could be a 2, the same strength, or it could be a little in between. A synthetic reed is going to be harder than a cane reed, as far as I remember. There's a chart on the Legato Reeds site that compares the synthetic reed to cane reeds, different brands of cane reeds, and this is one of those things that you have to look into and make sure you've picked the right one. So if you're a beginner, I would recommend a Legato signature reed, strength 1.5. Okay, that's around a 2. Van Doren traditional reed, which is another one I recommend, and that's where you need to start. If you've got a stronger one than that, it's going to be harder to play. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Michael. I can go ahead and find the video about synthetic reeds, and I'll post it in the comments. All right, so I'm going to find that now, and I'll post it in the comments so you can check out that video. And this is a great read for beginners. Okay, 1 second. All right, so I just pasted that into the comments. Barbara says, I've been using yours from your site, Amazing Grace, but I will look for your video. Yes, there's a video on YouTube as well. I can find that for you. Step-by-step tutorials. And I actually have tons of songs inside the Sax Circle coaching community with the same sort of method of showing you step-by-step how to play each of these songs. Okay, so I'm pasting that as well. Michael says I have a Van Doren T7. That's a great mouthpiece. You're an awesome teacher. I had to take a few months off. However, I'm back in the game and in the process of reviewing your videos. Awesome, Michael. Really excited you're back. Michael's one of my students inside the community, Sax Circle coaching community. He's doing great. He's posted some videos. Sounds awesome. Patricia asks, a small key between the B and C sticks. How do I fix this? I had it serviced, but it still sticks. Can I use a powdered paper? Yeah. Use the powdered paper. I think you're talking about this one. Really common. You can also use a dollar bill. But you basically, let's say if this is a powdered paper or a dollar bill, you put it underneath the key that's sticking, and you press it down, and you just pull it through. Right? Pull it through like that. And that should help with unsticking it. But it's crazy that the repair person didn't do that for you. But that's an easy way to unstick your pads. Brilliant class as always. Thank you, Alexander. See you tomorrow night. You're welcome, Pat. Thank you, Alex. I'm really enjoying these classes and learning so much. You're welcome. Gertie, again, one of my Sax Circle coaching community members. Thanks again today, Alexander. You're thorough and patient. Thank you, Gertie. All right. Any more questions? If not, we'll wrap this up. We're at an hour and a half now. We are going live tomorrow as well. Same time, we're going to be getting into how to jazz up your playing, how to improvise on the sax. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be fun. And I want you to try and focus on the assignment for today. Okay, so we talked about scales. We talked about technique. We talked about how all of that helps you with improving your playing and being able to play new songs. So this is your assignment. Learn a new major scale. Okay, use my 3-step process to learning a new major scale, right? Whether it's G major or any other scale. Practice the scale in 1 octave or more. Go up higher, go up lower if you can at 60 BPM. You can get a metronome. Put a metronome into any browser and you'll actually be able to get a metronome inside your browser if you don't have one. If you're more advanced, if you're past that beginner stage, try practicing in thirds. And again, it's all in the PDF download if you're on the page. I hope everyone's able to download it. Download that and you can just work on G major. Work on the songs that I showed you today. Work on this G major in thirds. If you haven't done all that before, now's a good time to start. This is a great assignment. If you get time before tomorrow, I really do hope you can. This has been great. Thank you so much for all the specifics. See you tomorrow. Awesome, Patricia. Barbara asked to rewatch this. Just go back to the same email link that you sent to get into this. Yes. So if you're on the page on my website, the replay is going to be on here pretty much instantly. It's going to be on YouTube, so you can watch it straight away. John, thanks, Alexander. You're welcome. Peter, thanks, Alexander. See you tomorrow. Awesome. All right, everyone. This has been so much fun. So great. Can't wait for tomorrow. This has been amazing. You guys are turning up, putting in the work. I love it. I love all the questions. So keep them coming. And I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Until then, happy playing and have a good day, a good night.